All right, we are live.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back to the Enlightenment Exchange. John has got connectivity issues today, so he's not going to be joining us. But I am here with Lisa of Future Echo Astrology. If you listened last week, you know that we're going to continue our conversation a little bit today. Um, but maybe because it's just us girls, we can talk a little different than if it was, a different dynamic, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about when we were talking about the show for this week, last week, Lisa recommended or mentioned that we could talk about the Emperor and the Empress, which I pulled these out. So I have them here, the Emperor and the Empress energy. Um, these are from the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann, and that is published by Hay House. Um, so I thought, wow, Emperor, Empress, Priest, Priestess, the Priestess energy, which some people know is the focus of my work right now. Some don't, but that's okay. It's still in the channeling phase, and I don't really know what it looks like on a larger scale yet, but I'm excited about it. And I think it's important that we, every now and then mention the need for that balance of divine feminine and masculine. So um, I'm curious to start with, and I know that you read tarot too, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, how does the Emperor and Empress relate to astrology, and how does that come into play in this time when I feel strongly that it is time, even probably astrologically, for the rise of, or the balance of the divine feminine and masculine.
Hmm. Yeah. So the major arcana of the tarot, each of those 22 cards are connected to an astrological sign or a planet.
Wait a minute, wait.
Hmm.
So, and if I'm correct, the major arcana is the Fool's Journey, right?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, now this could be a really interesting conversation.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then, so are they? So those cards are related to the signs. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So there's 22 cards, right, in the major arcana.
Right.
And there's 10 planets and 12 astrological signs. So each of the major arcana are connected to either an astrological sign or a planet.
Oh, that's so cool.
Hmm.
I mean, because I think that I have always firmly believed in it, and I'm still working on it, amongst all the other million other things that I do, that tarot, however you want to say it, has a magnificent framework, right?
Absolutely.
And if you can really learn, like John totally understands the framework of tarot. Bradley Valentine, another one, totally understands the framework. I don't have quite that grasp on it, but if you could get the grasp on that framework, you can use the cards to leverage energy in a way that is similar to the way I use goddess cards, which is I
Yeah.
use Colette Baron Reed's goddess cards, pick out four, put them on the floor, and then sit in the middle and meditate with all of them. So, I mean, the
Mhm.
cards themselves are representations of different kinds of energies, and you can use them in many different ways, not just to do readings. So that's so cool. Like, who knew? So there's actually a card that represents somebody that is a particular sign.
Yeah. So the Empress is Venus,
Okay.
and
And
the
the Emperor.
Emperor is Mars.
Okay. Oh, Venus and Mars, right? Men are, well, wait, wasn't that a book? Women are
Men are
from
from,
Venus, men are from Mars,
men are
or
from Mars,
something
women
like
are from
that.
Venus. Yeah. Uh
I
huh.
remember when that came out, and I remember like, oh, that was a pivot point in my marriage. Like, oh, he's just wired different.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool.
Hmm. So that's how, and so then Venus in astrology is the divine feminine, and then Mars is the divine masculine. So these two cards kind of represent those two archetypes.
Okay, that makes sense. So really working with the emperor and the empress, if you want to work with the divine feminine and masculine and restoring balance, that's a really great way to, I mean, that could be a really great anchor for all kinds of things. Readings to determine actions, um,
Mm-hmm.
information, what can you do to embody both? How can you balance the divine feminine and masculine energies within yourself? Like, there's a lot of different ways you can go with that, I think.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so, and it's interesting to me too, because I also, you can throw the numerology into tarot too, right?
Oh, sure.
So the three card is the Empress card, and that in numerology, that has a lot to do with creativity.
I mean, that makes total sense, right?
Mhm. And then the four is a lot about like a structure, right? A foundation. And you think about it, you need the feminine and masculine energies to create. That's creation energy. Whether it's a baby, a project, a book,
Right. And to be honest, you need uh how do I put this? Feminine and masculine creativity are two very different things, right?
right.
The men with the hammers and the saws, and the
Hmm.
women with the ideas and the actual, creativity. So before you chastise me out there for saying a woman can wield a hammer and a saw just like a man, because she has a balance of divine feminine and masculine within her, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. I
Right.
think so. Yeah, it's not. It's more balanced than tipped, from one scale to the other. I would say.
So just because I find this very interesting, and I don't know why I didn't come up with this all by myself. I googled the planets and their cards, you know,
Okay.
and so silly me, I don't know why I didn't come up with this on my own. Libra, which is what I am, is justice. Hello, like, and then I guess I have a kid that's a Scorpio, and that's the death card. Holy crap,
Uh huh.
that fits. It fits. It fits. It fits. And then what is August 14th? What is that
So
sign?
August 14th would be Leo. That would
Strength,
be the strength card.
inner strength, heart, and courage. My God, that's like it couldn't be more spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Virgo. I mean, just join me. Oh my God,
Yeah.
Virgo is the hermit.
Uh huh.
I'm married to a Virgo who is a hermit.
Who is the hermit?
Literally, he comes from a family of hermits. To be honest, that is wow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's anybody listening, but if you are, put your sign in the comments, and we'll tell you. Well, this
So
is
guess
really
what Capricorn is?
fascinating.
Yeah, guess what Capricorn is?
The devil, right?
Yep.
That's what it says. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, because, and it's funny when I do tarot readings and I get the devil, I go right to their work because I see this through the lens of astrology when I do my readings. And so
Sure.
people will get, oh my God, the devil. And I'll talk about their work. And it usually is spot on because they came to me for a reading.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I find it really, like the death card, the devil, the tower. Like people are, oh, but I'm like, no,
Right.
that's just not that's just not the intention. I mean, I just find it funny that every tarot card in a TV show that you watch is the death
Oh, right.
card, right? Like, but
Yeah.
people are like, oh, the tower or fives when because fives are about change, and people are like, I don't want to see all those fives. Why?
Right. Right.
Change is
Exactly.
amazing. Like
Yeah.
you
I agree.
know, but I can see. So this is interesting, Capricorn, and they just give me a few keywords: bondage, materialism, and shadow. And I think I see you sometimes as bound by that merry-go-round or that hamster wheel that lives in your head.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so, I mean, I think this is an interesting pivot point for a conversation about this, because these things are, shall we say, written in the stars,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean they're like a sentence, right? So if you have an awareness that you're an overthinker, or you are, subject to the bondage of overthinking, or somebody like me who is like, I can't go in through the outdoor, right? I
Right.
literally can't go in through the outdoor. Like one time it was broken and my husband had to put his hand on my back and, push me to go out in through the outdoor. Like I just literally can't do it. In
Yeah.
fact, I got caught walking around a building once trying to find the indoor because the only door said exit. What are you doing, lady? I said, well, there's no indoor. What's right here? I said, no, that says exit. The
That's
guy
fun.
looked at me like I was cuckoo. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just that, so
Yeah.
when you have an awareness that this is just part of, the fabric of who you are, or, like kind of the way you're stitched together, I think
Yeah.
that gives you the opportunity to say, "Oh, wait a minute, that's just my Libra kicking in." Let
Yeah.
me step, sidestep or step around or above or over or under or stop it and let me just, move on, right? Like that's so
Yeah.
good.
Because there's also all of these energies operate on a spectrum. So there's a really positive expression, and then I call it the shadow side.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because not all Libras are alike.
Oh no, that's absolutely the truth. I mean, and that's really interesting, because I have a very good friend. She may listen. She may be listening. I don't know. Sometimes she does. Sometimes she doesn't. She has this habit of calling people who are Aquarius dipshit Aquarians. Pardon my French. That's her word, not mine. Okay. No letters, please, or emails.
Right. Right.
Um, because everybody that she knows that is an Aquarius is kind of a, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in her mind, that means they're all that way. And the
Right.
truth of the matter is, it's just not true, because when I hear some of the characteristics of being Libra, they fit. When I hear others, I'm like, yeah, that's not me at all.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know. So and like I think, isn't perfectionism perfectionist, isn't that somewhere in there in the Libra description?
Well, perfectionism is more Capricorn because they get into dualistic thinking,
Oh,
but
okay.
Libras have a hard time making up their mind.
Oh yeah, well that is the
They
truth.
see things
Don't if you want to go to lunch and you want me to pick, you need to ask me 2 weeks in advance. Just saying.
absolutely. That's
Just
what I mean.
saying.
Yeah. Because really, what the Libra is trying to do is balance the polarity in, and that's the ruled by Venus, but it's trying to balance the polarity into what do I want, and speaking what it wants, which is Aries,
Which is also my
which is,
rising sign or something,
yeah, it
right?
is. Uh huh.
Great. I'm doomed.
Yeah. So you got
No.
the internal battle going on in you.
And yet I'm very even, right? I'm very
Well,
even.
Libras will like to balance out. Yeah.
Yeah.
If things are too tipped in one direction, they'll even it out somehow because they're
Yeah,
looking
I
for
mean,
harmony.
right. Got to. Just have to. I
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. So now as we look at this and as we look at the astrology as it relates to tarot, and I think I love the idea that we're talking about astrology, which to me is written in the stars. I find that to be, although I know there are scientists that would tell me no, I find astrology to be more scientific, and
Hmm.
I find tarot to be more esoteric.
Yeah.
However, if you look at the structure and the framework of tarot and the way that it marries with numerology and astrology, I would argue that there's somewhere along the lines, um, you know, whether it's collective consciousness or by design, that the tarot is a bit scientific itself, right? Now, the
That's
argument, right? The argument, I mean, there is a collective consciousness argument that can be made, right? Because in fact, the colors Roy G. Biv
mm-hmm,
have very little to do with the chakras, but they're a very good way of organizing and being able to remember that stuff,
mm-hmm,
right? Like the frequency of those colors don't match the frequency of the chakras, but it's a great way to organize them. But now, because people have used that as a tool for so long, it becomes part of the collective consciousness. So
mm-hmm,
maybe is that what happened with the framework of tarot as well, right? Like
mm-hmm,
that because it's used repetitively and typically, not by
mm-hmm.
me, of course, but typically in the same fashion, right? Like,
Right.
and so if you marry that all with the energy of astrology, well, we should all be rich, shouldn't we?
In theory, yes, we should.
Right? I mean, but that is the thing. Like there's always got to be that perfect storm, right? When I mean, you can tell me that the energy in this at this month on this day is this, and this is when you should do this and you should do that, and that's great. And especially if it's just something that's for me, I don't know. I want to take a trip or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's, let's say, about releasing a new program, it might be a really great day for me to release a program, but it may not be a really great day for all the other people that need to pay for it to
Mm-hmm.
receive it, right? So it's,
Right.
there it is. I mean, we live in a society of polarity, in a
Mm-hmm.
place of polarity, right? There's always two sides to everything. So,
That's why I'll be honest, like people will say to me when they come in for sessions, they want to know all the dates and stuff. And like, the dates are great, but it's more if you don't have your vibration at a higher level to accept the good transits, you won't attract it anyway. If
right?
you have the limiting beliefs, or if you haven't done the work to get your I don't to me I always call it like your frequency at a higher level, you're gonna take on or you're not gonna feel like you're worthy of it anyway, and you're probably self-sabotage.
Yeah, right. I
Yeah.
mean, and let's face it, we humans are very good at self sabotage. I don't know that there's one sign that's better at it than another, but yeah,
Right.
I mean, and and it's interesting too because I think that self sabotage can come not only consciously or even subconsciously, but somehow energetically when you're not really in alignment with whatever it might be,
That.
that's coming your way. And I mean, I find it really interesting, like the so many people, let's say, talk about I want to be a millionaire, I want to be rich, I don't want to work another day in my life. Well, sorry, but you're wrong. If you become a millionaire, let's say you win the lottery, managing that money is a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a vacation, it's a full-time job and it's important and there are, you know, tax matters and lawyers and bankers and so it's not really in alignment for everyone to, become a gazillionaire, which is why so many lottery winners, shall we say, piss through their money
Right.
within a year or two. Um, I struggle with the one that has me 3 pounds away from my goal weight and then circumstances changing, and going backwards. I struggle to find the meaning of that one. A lot of people just say, well, you just didn't have the willpower, but it really wasn't that. It was circumstances. Everything that I was doing was working while I was in that particular situation with my friend living right next door, and we were, and then all of a sudden I moved, and then she moved, and then all of that, everything changed, and I had no contingency plan.
Okay.
Right? So I wonder, is there a way within astrology, and timing, is there a way to say, well, listen, this is what I'm doing right now and it's working well. But
Mm-hmm.
what if something changes? You know what I mean? Like contingency plans, I think, are important.
I agree because everything is interconnected, right?
right?
So and it's so like there's been some movies about it, like Sliding Doors was one where, she made the train or she didn't make the train, and her life went in two different directions based on that, or based on what somebody else has done that is, connected to you. I think we're in everything's quantum, right? So
Yeah.
everything is interconnected, and you do quantum jumps. You can try and create the life you desire, but if it's not meant for you, if it's not the right time, maybe it's going to come 2 years later. You're trying to force it into this time frame. So I think it does get really, you know, tricky that way.
I agree. I mean, like I said, everything was rolling so well, and then all of a sudden everything changed, and then it was all different.
Hmm.
And I think we get into this mindset of, well, what I'm doing is working, so there's no need to even think about anything else because what I'm doing is working. And we forget that things do shift, they do change. And as you do anything, as you learn anything, as you create anything, as you even let's say as you go to school and you're going for a degree, you're shifting and changing while that's happening. And
Hmm.
so what was available to you when you started
Hmm.
halfway through, that's not really available anymore. But what is available is probably bigger, better, and more accessible, right? And then, but
Right.
that is becomes small, and like so. I think we have to be willing to not be too attached to a particular outcome,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where, if you go back to the visual of the Empress, she's literally just sitting on her throne, laid back. She doesn't look stressed out. She's not trying to control anything, right? She's just
Yeah, I mean,
got the rider in front of me.
even Chris Ann's. I mean, she's just like she's got the world in her lap.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just about being in the flow of the universe, because sometimes we want to control it and we want a certain outcome, but it might not be the best outcome for us. And we don't know that at the time, and we're so disappointed because we didn't get what we thought we wanted, and then something greater comes along, like you said. So, but that's where I feel like this is part of her creation, and the card that I have, and yours too. Like, there's a lot of nature involved, right? And nature, everything happens in its own
Cycle, right?
cycle or sequence, right? The leaf falling off the tree isn't upset that it's going to hit the ground. It just falls and hits the ground, and so we have a
Right.
lot to learn from nature.
And because when it falls and hits the ground, it's now going to transform into something different,
Yeah, exactly. Right.
right? And then eventually, after it transforms back into earth and nutrients, the tree will take it up, through its roots, and some of that energy, that matter, will find its way back into another leaf, and
Right.
or not. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that I remember somebody saying to me once, quite a while ago. She said, "I just expect the worst, so I'm not disappointed." I said, "Stop that."
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
said, "You have to stop that because if you walk around expecting the worst, what's going to happen? The worst, right?"
Yeah, you'll attract it.
I believe that. I mean, if you walk into a store loaded for bear, you're going to find a bear, right?
Right.
Like you just are. So,
Yeah.
um, I remember her calling me and saying, things really shifted after I
Mm-hmm.
shifted that mindset. So I just wonder, for anybody that might be listening, where is it in the Empress energy, the Emperor energy? Like how can they identify that within themselves
Mm-hmm.
and try just to embrace it rather than control it or
Mm-hmm.
like embody it maybe or balance it within themselves. Like where does that live? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you mean astrologically? Or
Astrologically,
yeah.
life, whatever.
So, the emperor, the empress, excuse me, is a lot about To me, it's a lot about love, heart-centered love, and nurturing and supporting, taking the action. That's where you pair it with the emperor. You take the actions that you can, and then just receive. It's a lot about the empress is about receiving what comes back. So it's not that you just say, oh, I'm just going to sit here and wait for what I want to come. So you have to take the action with the emperor card
Right.
and the Mars energy, but with the Venus, you have to be okay with what you receive in the moment.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you need to learn how to receive
Yeah,
with grace and gratitude, right? Because a
yeah.
lot of us, and it's interesting because this is also another valid conversation, and I love this. For me, it was my purple hair that taught me to receive.
Your purple hair.
It was so interesting, and I pay attention to something. I don't have a lot of memories from when I was younger, but I don't dwell, right? So,
Yeah.
but I remember, we're all, a lot of us are like this. Somebody gives you a compliment and you say, well, or, oh, you're looking really good today. Yeah, but it's a bad hair day, or, whatever. And so
Mm.
when I first, and it's been a while, I miss it. As soon as I have my surgery, my purple hair will be back. Um, what's interesting was when I first got it, every time I turned around, somebody was telling me they loved my hair. Like women, men, cashiers, young people. It didn't, everybody. Like it happened 3, 4, 5 times a day. And when I first started hearing it, I would be like, well, I don't know, maybe I'm too old, or it didn't come out exactly like I would have wanted, or, like all those things that we all say, those self deprecating things. And then finally one day, I said to myself, what are you doing? Just say thank you. Hi, Coventina. I said, just say thank you. And so after a little while, when people would say it, and they still did, every time I had purple hair, people stopped me like, wow, your hair, amazing. What I realized was that translated into other things in my life.
Mm.
If I'm out to lunch now and somebody says I'll take the check, I go okay.
Hmm.
No fighting. So if you don't want to pay, don't. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Uh,
Like because I receive it with grace. I receive it with grace and gratitude.
yeah.
So one of the things that I do in my work, in my mind, in my prayers, in my, set myself up for the day or whatever, is allow me to receive with grace and gratitude.
Hmm.
Without expectation, with grace and gratitude. And I even apply that to things that I pay for,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because you should still receive it with grace and gratitude. Like
Right.
even though you don't just say, well, I'm paying for that, right?
Right.
So I don't know if that's in my Libra, trying to be balanced and harmonious or not, but I just feel like if we could all be a little less entitled, maybe,
Well,
we'd have a little more balance here.
yeah, you're showing the universe that you're open to receiving, and then it'll
Exactly.
give you more.
And then it's amazing what comes your way when you are.
Right. Right.
It's and the thing of it is, I think that a lot of times people can't even think of, like you can't even conceive of um what is possible,
Right.
right? Like I think I told you when I work with people, I love to feel around in the field of possibility, I call it. A
Hmm.
lot of people can't handle, like it's too much, it's too big, they're not ready. So
Yeah.
I don't usually, like in a session, I don't usually say, well, you know how big this is, because people are like, which
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I don't know that I want to work that hard. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, but it's so interesting because I see and visualize things in concentric circles, that this field of possibility lives inside and outside the comfort zone.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That there's possibilities within your comfort zone, but there's possibilities that are outside of it, and those are the ones, right, Those
Yeah.
are the money shots right there. So how I think what we're talking about with the Empress and the Emperor energy, sitting back, receiving, but it's this balance. So what does balance between the Emperor and the Empress look like? What does that mean
Mm-hmm.
between
Uh,
those two energies?
yeah. Uh, I think it's about taking assertive action with the emperor, right? So he knows what he wants and he takes every opportunity or action that he can to make it happen. I say assertive versus aggressive, like that could be trying to have power control over, which doesn't usually work. But it's about having the courage and the initiative to just go for it without sometimes it can be impulsive, but sometimes you just have to put it out there. And it's like the businessman that can like lay it on the table what they want. This is what I want, and then wait back. And then the empress is about nurturing,
Stepping back in,
support,
yeah.
but also being kind of okay and grateful for what comes back. I mean, I just keep looking, and I'm looking at the card, and it's just like she's just sitting there, she's on her throne. She's got her little scepter, up to the universe. She's in nature, but she's not worried.
And it's really interesting because as you were saying that, I saw that very clearly. Like, and I think you and I even have friends that have done uh, where they've, like, let's say, quit their jobs to take on some kind of, metaphysical entrepreneurial role.
Mm-hmm.
And so, quitting the job and making that choice is very emperor.
Yeah.
But then standing there and being willing and able to receive with grace and gratitude instead of trying to control every little aspect of it, which is a kiss of death, probably,
Yeah.
right?
Because your fears get activated then, you know.
And I recall somebody some years ago, she had a job at which she was miserable. She worked in the health department. She was miserable. So she, was guided, quit the job, quit the job, quit the job. And then she was out of work for a while. And I remember her having a conversation with somebody, I was in the same room. And she said, well, I just really can't find a job. I don't know what's, happening. And the person asked her, what kind of job are you applying for? She said, well, similar to what I left. See, you get it, right? Like
Yeah.
you know the moral of that story immediately. And as soon
Mm-hmm.
as she let go of the idea that she was looking to replace,
Face with the.
what she put down and
Mhm.
started looking at things that really lit her up, the next thing you know, she had a job that she was absolutely in love with.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that was a job, right? She wasn't quitting to be an entrepreneur of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think that a lot of people think that's what they want to do, but that's not, people aren't really all in alignment with that either. Like,
No.
I can't tell you how many spiritual entrepreneurs I've run across that are in tax trouble, but that's another story for another day. And I
Yeah, and yeah, because you have to take, and sometimes you do have to release something so you create space for something to come in.
exactly, right?
Yeah, so it is a fine line, I think. Like I always advocate for, like when I was in sales and I wanted to be an astrologer, like if I would, I did both for a while, and I
Yeah.
let one go as the other one got more because I didn't want to ever just sit around and expect the universe to just send me clients.
See, and I love that, because if you talk to a lot of people out there, oh my God, you got to stop everything you're doing.
Yeah.
Spirit said I need to quit my job. Well, spirit doesn't need to eat, honey,
Yeah, exactly. Spirit doesn't have a mortgage.
right? So
Right.
I really believe that you can straddle that line,
Hmm.
but then if you get to that place, like with your astrology, if
Hmm.
you get to that place and where it is possible for you to leave one to do to do that full time, and
Hmm.
you don't make that leap of trust,
Right.
then all of a sudden that's going to start to die away.
Right, because that's the
because you can't sustain both, right?
no, you can't. Right, because that's the Fool's card, right? So that's like you got to jump off the cliff and trust that the universe will have your back, but you also have to know your practical limitations in that. I'm not.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and it is, well, it's just like everybody. Every time I turn around, some other spiritual entrepreneur is like, "Well, it's official. I'm officially an entrepreneur now. I created an LLC." Wrong. That is
right.
not what did it. Not only is it not what did it, it very likely was the wrong move for you. But I'm not going to go into that now either.
Yeah.
Um, that's just not it. That it's
Mm-hmm.
picking up that mantle and doing the work. So
Mm-hmm.
now, because we only have a little bit of time left, I want to bring the priest and the priestess into the conversation. Is there a priest or is it just the priestess?
So there's the high priestess and
Oh, the magician.
yeah, oh yeah, the magician. Mhm.
Well, the high priestess. I want to talk about priestess energy for a minute. That's really what
Sure.
I want. So I'm all right with, um, which I find very interesting when I look at the high priestess in this, that I pulled up, the
Yeah.
moon. Is that right? The moon.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then intuition, hidden wisdom, and cycles, which is just so appropriate because we're in a cycle where the high priestess is using her intuition and hidden wisdom to create new balance, right,
Yeah.
within what's happening. And astrologically speaking, I do believe this is the time for it, right? And then also astrologically speaking, I believe I'm set right up actually for doing this priestess work. Am I not?
It is, yes, you are in your chart, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's where you can pair the energy cycles, the planetary cycles to I always say you always have to put it in your own chart because you can hear all of these. There's a lot of information about how the collective energies are working with each other, and that's true for everybody, but that's not going to sit in everybody's chart in the same way.
Right, right, right. And I think that sort of collective energies working with each other are, I think of it as like background noise. Like
Yeah,
it's like background music or
yeah,
elevator music or whatever. It's just always there. It's just always happening. It's having whatever effect it's having, but you
yeah.
have very little control over it.
Well, that's true, right? You kind of have to find the thread into it or
Right,
like the stream, connect
right.
your chart into the stream of what is in the background for sure.
Right. So, I mean, that's to me that it's just important that you focus on. And I really believe right now, so I am going to go there just a little bit. Um, I believe there's a lot of distraction happening right now, and this is the perfect time for those of us who support the divine feminine in rising and balancing. You and
Hmm.
I agree on this.
Hmm.
Balancing with the
Yeah,
divine, not
always.
overtaking, it's
Nope.
balance.
Right.
Um, but I think there's enough distraction happening right now that if those of us who are of the mind to support the divine feminine and that return to balance
Hmm.
really put our minds to it and our energy to it, whatever it looks like for each of us,
Yeah.
that's how it happens. That's how it works because they're not paying attention to what we're doing, right?
Right. It is.
It-
It is. I think for the individual to take back their authentic power, and within themselves.
right, because that influences their choices. It
Hmm.
influences the way they move through the world. It
Hmm.
might influence their vote.
Hmm.
It does have an influence, and I think, well, at least for me, I'm trying to do my part.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important to know that, I mean, because you can have a female who thinks she doesn't have the divine masculine, but she really does. It's
Hmm.
her initiative to do something, and then a man can have the divine feminine in there. Its ability to love and nurture and support something. So it's the energies are within everybody, and the more that you can have them balanced within you, the greater your I call it co-creation, or you could call it manifestation with the universe is going to be, because you're not fighting that polarity within yourself as much.
That makes sense to me. So now it's really interesting because I forgot about this, but when we were starting out, so if we were to take the Emperor and the Empress cards
Mm-hmm.
and want to do ourselves a tarot reading
Mm-hmm.
to find out how we could better balance that masculine feminine energy within ourselves, could we use them as like headings for, like, I don't know if you do this in tarot. I do it in oracle readings where I pull cards and I
Pull
use
the
them.
card out. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what might that look like?
Yeah. So I think you could just pull the Empress card, keep all the other cards in the deck, and then lay out a spread like a Celtic cross and ask. I mean, you could set the intention to ask different questions. You could ask, what is my current status with my divine feminine, or and then with the Celtic, right, you can go past, present, future, and so
Yeah, let's
that's
just
how
try
I would.
a let's try a little. Oh, that one. Okay. Let's try just two cards. I got the Emperor and the Empress and the Emperor here.
Okay.
So, what do I need to do to balance my Empress energy? What do I need to do to balance my Emperor energy? And then I'll tell you what the card is
Okay.
because you're going to be John right now.
Oh, I'm gonna be John. Oh boy.
Yeah, because John is the one that knows about the. Oh, that one. Okay. Why, of course it is. Okay.
You've already figured it out.
Well, no, but I just find it funny the one I drew. So this is the Empress card, right?
Yeah. I love that card. That's beautiful.
And it is beautiful. It's a
Really
beautiful deck,
beautiful.
actually.
Yeah.
Again, it's the Light Seers Tarot by
Oh, because
Chrisanne.
also, yeah, the Empress is about fertility and pregnant with possibilities, right?
Oh, right. Oh,
Doesn't have
okay.
to- yeah, it doesn't have to be a baby. It could be like I'm birthing something.
Which I guess technically speaking, I am. But
Right.
okay. So
Exactly.
this is the Empress. So for me to balance my Empress energy is the Four of Swords.
Okay.
So
So well, go ahead.
no.
Do you want me
So
to be
you
John?
tell me. No, John would tell me what the Four of Swords means.
So the Four of Swords is, you could look at it as surrender in a way, knowing when to take action and knowing when to just not, to stop. Because the Four of Swords, and he's all curled up, right? That person, or the person's all curled up in that one.
Right.
In the Rider Waite, it's like laying on a tomb with the swords. So that to me is discernment about when do I act and when do I just
See, that's brilliant. And I'm already
receive.
doing that, right? Like I'm already
Yeah,
doing that. So that's great.
right.
Now,
Okay.
surprise, surprise. No, it's no surprise. If John were here, he'd be like, oh, totally. It's no surprise. So this is the Emperor card. And for me to balance my Emperor energy, dun, 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 John, I don't know if you're watching, but it is the Queen of Swords.
The Queen of
The
Swords.
Queen of Swords is me. The Queen of Swords is my
Oh.
significator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So be true to myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Be
I mean,
authentic.
because isn't the Queen of Swords? She wants what she wants when she wants it.
She does. And
Wouldn't
I
you?
think it's also about not being afraid to go for go for it and be authentic and, to see what comes back. Overshoot it if you need to, and you'll still land among the stars, right? If you shoot for the moon.
Yep. So I would say that based on this right here, I'm pretty well balanced when it comes to Emperor and Empress energy.
Yeah.
So this is what we did, folks. I put the Emperor and the Empress out of the deck and I put them on the table. And then I drew a card for the Empress. How do I balance my Empress energy? And then the Emperor, how do I balance the Emperor energy? I got the Four of Swords for the Empress, and I got me for the Emperor. So, and that would be the Queen of Swords. So, if you're interested in that, and you don't remember or want me to type it out in a comment or something, let me know and I'll be happy to do that for you. Um, Interestingly enough, we've gone over, so there you go. So we do have one more astrological conversation happening next week. Lisa's going to be back for another episode. Who knows? Maybe we'll get her to come back for a fourth. We'll see. Um, it just depends on whatever we can come up with to talk about, right?
Right. Yeah, we were good. Yeah. Hmm.
And next week we'll have John back, so we'll see what that looks like. But meanwhile, thank you ever so much for listening. Coventina, it was great to see you in the comments. We'd love to have you with us. And if we see you often, we will mention you by name. So just remember that in the video. Anyway, if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button, and we will be back next week with another conversation with Lisa. Lisa, thank you so much
Oh man,
for.
this flew by, Angie. This was like two
I know
seconds.
it goes so fast, and
Yeah.
thank you actually for not only being here, but filling in for John, as a matter of fact. And meanwhile,
See,
that's it.
I had to wear both. I
Oh,
had to balance my together to be.
there you go. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Coventina, we love you too so
Yeah,
much.
Bentina, thank you.
And we will talk to you next week. Thanks again. Bye.
Okay, bye.